We are very privileged in this session. This is the Veterans and Patients Advocate session. Am I correct in saying that? I'm sorry, my head is a whirlwind right now. This is fun. If you're having a fun time, please let me know you're having a fun time. Technical difficulties aside, in this session we are very fortunate to have Matt Call here.
My name's Matthew Kale. I used to be in the 101st Airborne Division. I was in the infantry, of course. We saw a lot. We saw a lot of stuff, plenty of trauma, and honestly, I've only just now come to realize that the military trauma rekindled a sort of deep emotional trauma that I had from a long time ago, early on in life, childhood trauma. There's plenty of childhood trauma to go around in this world, and as y'all know, at least 22 veterans a day kill themselves due to PTSD and suicide. But the fact is that we are just the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of people that have PTSD do not serve in the military ever. 22 people a day are killing themselves in the military, but that's nothing compared to 112 in the general population. 112 people a day die. They kill themselves in the general population every single day due to PTSD and suicide. Because I challenge anybody to find me a suicide that is not the cause of some kind of trauma. It just is. That's the way it is. It's a fact of life. People kill themselves because of trauma, and this is a huge problem in our society. Veterans are coming back in increasing numbers to find out that America is not what we thought it was. You know, America, most of us, we signed up for freedom, for the principle of freedom, to be able to doctor ourselves, as Christala says. And we are being denied that right every day by the VA, by traditional doctors. So it's up to veterans now to really spearhead this issue. PTSD, right now it's a veterans issue, but it's much broader than that. We are happy to pick up this flag and carry it home for those who cannot, those who are still too hurt, too angry, too afraid to come out of the house. We are happy to pick up this flag and carry it for them and attempt to change the policy on PTSD and marijuana. When I first started treating myself with cannabis, the first thing I ever tried actually was a high CBD hemp extract, and it helped, but it didn't help as much as I thought it should. But when I was introduced to the high THC marijuana, I found that the psychoactive effects are exactly what you need. Because in PTSD, it's your emotions, it's your mental processes, and it's your mood that's messed up. And if you can't change your thoughts, your emotions, your mood, how are you going to fix PTSD? Well, you can't. You absolutely have to take something psychoactive in order to change that. So THC is an absolutely essential component in treating PTSD. The other things I think that a lot of people are not really educated on in treating PTSD are the other cannabinoids. Everybody knows about THC and everybody knows about CBD now. But like I said, CBD is great for pain control, and there are some emotional issues it can help in mitigating. But you need the psychoactivity if you're treating PTSD. And there are many psychoactive cannabinoids, not just THC. There's, of course, the Delta-9 THC, there's Delta-8 THC, there's THCV, there's CBN. There's all kinds of different cannabinoids that are psychoactive, and they all have specific benefits. Most specifically for me, I needed the high psychoactivity, but with high THC strains, many times that will trigger anxiety attacks, which are a huge problem in PTSD. So I started going about trying to find strains that had THCV in it. THCV is also, it actually intensifies the psychoactive effects, but for some reason it mitigates the anxiety of many strains. So I found a number of land races from East Africa that were high in THCV, and I credit that mostly with not only my ability to get over PTSD, but with my ability to heal myself from the traumatic brain injury. THCV has been extremely promising in treating a lot of traumatic brain injury-induced cognitive deficits, like memory deficits, things like that. I actually, for a short period of time after medevac, I was I lost the ability to read for a little while. And it was really tough. It took me hours to get through a sentence or a paragraph. But THCV and the combination of that with THC managed to get my brain to a place where I could sit down and read a scientific study and actually comprehend what was going on in it instead of simply reading the same words over and over again. One of the main things also about treating PTSD with cannabis is that cannabis in almost any form, almost any cannabinoid will actually decrease your endogenous production of cortisol. Cortisol is the primary stress hormone in the body, and it's also one of the main reasons why traumatic events codify themselves in your brain with such an intense representation. So much so that your brain will constantly revisit that memory. That cortisol is actually what triggers the mental codification of that memory. So if you can eliminate it, then you can possibly change the way that memory is codified. Now, one of the things that Chris Hall was saying earlier is that warriors have been using cannabis for a very long time, and I think there's a really good reason for that. It's been shown unequivocally to be able to not just treat PTSD once it's started, but it's been able to completely stop it from ever taking place in the first place. It will actually, if you take it at the time of a traumatic event, it will prevent that traumatic event from becoming a PTSD trigger issue. So I honestly think prior to about the 20th century, Afghan warriors were by and large seen as the most fierce and formidable fighting force in the world. And honestly, I think that it might have something to do with the fact that they use cannabis like no other culture on the world. This culture, they're not necessarily aggressive. They're hill tribes people they're defensive in nature. They simply defend their land, but they've been forced to do it for a very long time, and they don't have any issues with going to war and coming back and being completely normal human beings afterwards. I think that is one of the major crucial pieces of the puzzle that's missing from military treatment, especially for PTSD. And of course for TBI too. TBI is probably the second most common military injury. And TBI, that was actually the source of the first cannabinoid patent by the American government, was as a neuroprotectant against ischemic issues and traumatic injuries to the brain. So I think between all of those various different aspects, this plant holds nothing short of a revolution in science and in medicine when it comes to treating military injuries and injuries of all kinds. It's been gone over before here that it is widely present in almost every system in the body. These cannabinoid receptors, they're not just limited to CB1 and CB2. There are at least 3 or 4 other putative, unrecognized cannabinoid receptors that it binds to very strongly. So this is an extremely complex system. There's not just one thing that attaches to it. There's no less than actually 6 endogenous ligands that will attach to these cannabinoid receptors. That's more than any other. Everybody knows what dopamine is, right? Dopamine makes you feel good. Well, dopamine has 5 receptors only and 1 endogenous ligand. You go to cannabinoids, you have 6 receptors, at least 6 receptor subtypes and 6 endogenous ligands. So you're talking about a vastly more complex system. This has amazing potential in the treatment of almost every condition known to man, and the fact is it's safe enough that we can try it for anything. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
So hi, my name is Gabe Douglas, or Ao Keawa Pasca Machiapi, or Bonjour, Mekena Indijinita Zayaya. So I'm Flandreau, Santee Sioux Indian, Oglala, Lakota, Northern and Southern Cheyenne, and Lake Superior Chippewa. But, so, I don't know how I describe my situation other than telling the story about it. So, about a year and a half, year and 3/4 ago, I started waking up in the middle of the night with just like the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, just shooting down my arm, and my hand was bent the wrong way that it was supposed to. I tried to yell for help, and I couldn't, nothing would come out. And I was so scared every night to go to sleep just because of what I feel. And people around me, they see, what's going on with this guy. This isn't what he's like normally. I'd be a husk of a human being. Like, sure, my body would be here, but my, Gabe Douglas wouldn't be here. Just whatever piece of flesh and skin on a skeleton. But when I started treating myself with the CBD, like extract, it took a few days to feel any sort of relief, but on that time I was also on a very hardcore pill called Capra, and that was making me like, I don't know how to explain. A berserker, that's what it was like. A berserker. So, and that would just be towards anybody I loved, anything, I'd yell at my grandparents, and I don't want to yell at my grandparents. I'd get mad at my sister, toss things around, and it's not me, So after a while, just being fed up of living, a life that was terrible. I smoked a joint with my friend, and that night I was happy. I could sleep, I felt good, and just inside I always felt like a haze in my mind, but it was gone. And for some reason I was just able to slip into my bed and, this is comfortable. I'm not afraid of being here. And I went to sleep the whole night. I didn't wake up and have a seizure. I wasn't waking up and being afraid of having a seizure either. And from then on, just opening my eyes towards the cannabis treatment and then seeing with other epileptics, they can't speak like I can. They'd be up here it would take them that long to get maybe a word out. And seeing that, I don't know, broke my heart. Because, how to say it, your fellow kids, right? You're supposed to be having fun, having a nice life, having fun on a playground, but here they are, tied to whatever bed they are, falling down because they can't move 5 minutes without having a seizure. And, it's obvious that they're not well. But, so I talked to some of them about using CBD, and there was one kid, he's from Steamboat, and was kind of a mentor to him. I told him about it. He said, okay, I'll try some of that. And he did. His had a lot more immediate effects and kind of didn't have so more have a gradual becoming well. He was pretty instant. So if it could happen to someone like that where he'll drop dead, or not drop dead, just drop down and have a seizure in the middle of lunch, have a classroom and have everybody ridicule him, like, what's wrong with you? And that's another thing, thinking about what's wrong with me. But that's another thing. So, the thing is, though, is a lot of people won't trust you. People won't see that you're doing it in a good way. They're thinking, oh my God, this kid's blasted out of his mind, you know, before he goes to sleep. I have to be blasted out of my mind to go to sleep. Because, I don't know how to describe pure terror until you've seen it. I'm sure and when it comes from your own body, that's, but if I want to say anything to have this keep going forward is listen to your kids. We're coming up and, you know, they talk about the seventh generation. 7 generations coming around soon, and so we got to have something for them. And this was here for me. And if it was here for me, why wouldn't I want everybody to have it too? Because I suffered, and when I suffered, people helped me, and I want to help them. That's kind of the basics of what I want.
There is new research on the use of marijuana as medicine in Colorado. A marijuana and health symposium at National Jewish Health explored nearly a dozen studies looking at using pot for things like seizures and insomnia. CBS 4's Mark Taylor reports.
I'd rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
4 times a day, 15-year-old Colton Turner takes his medicine.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, before I go to bed.
It's cannabis oil used to treat his Crohn's disease, an illness he's been fighting since age 11. And up until last year, it looked like a battle he was losing.
I was just on every pharmaceutical there was out there until I wound up in a wheelchair.
He got sick, and we had no other options.
Desperate for a miracle, his parents moved him from the Midwest to Colorado in 2014 and turned to cannabis oil.
We thought, well, why not try? And it worked.
We're funding 9 studies.
Their case is just one shared at National Jewish Health's Marijuana and Health Symposium.
We're very proud of this program in terms of the potential.
Ken Gershman with the Colorado Department of Public Health says 9 current and upcoming studies are looking at marijuana as a treatment for illnesses stretching from insomnia and inflammatory bowel disease to PTSD.
We can't bury our heads in the sand. We need to learn more and make sensible decisions based on evidence.
As for Colton, who's gone from hospital beds to Colorado mountaintops, his family hopes this research leads to action, which will allow families like them to have cannabis oil as a first option rather than a last resort.
We want people to understand that this is a good option.
Mark Taylor, CBS 4 News.
I'm sure you're wondering why I called you all here today. Now you now know where all this is done. My name is Colton Turner. I'm 15 years old, and I am a cannabis user for Crohn's disease. Not many people know that cannabis can be used for Crohn's disease, and we didn't either when we first came out here. It was kind of just a random chance. There were no guarantees. And when we came out here, it was just me and my dad. We had nothing but a suitcase full of clothes, some money, and we were just running from hotel to hotel, getting cannabis from dispensaries and making brownies out of it. They smelled bad, believe me. But eventually we were able to get the medicine that I needed, and like many other people, it didn't happen immediately. I mean, it took a little bit of time. I'd say about a couple days until I started to notice an effect. But it wasn't the complete strain that we were looking for, so we had to experiment. We had to change the strains, add CBD, add THC, because I do take both. And I'm not high. I'm never high. I've been high 2 or 3 times, and those times were from medicines that you get from the hospital when you have to go under. Everyone will have to go experience that at some point in their life. But I came out here on March 4th of 2014. I I started the medicine, and in October of 2014, that same year, we had another colonoscopy. We went from just ulcers, inflammation, anything that you can say it's in there, to completely clear in just a few months. Yeah. And this medicine is great and everything, but the thing about it is that, like I said, there are no guarantees. I mean, one strain is not going to work for two people at the same time, even if they had the same disease. They're still a different human body. Everything is different. And some people have to up in the THC, up in the CBD, or even the way you take it can affect how you feel. But the way I take it, I don't smoke it, I don't do any of that. What I do is I have a caregiver, and he makes it into an oil for me that we put in pill capsules that I take 4 times a day, every day. And that's put me in remission for about 18 months now for Crohn's disease. And it was our last resort, and we didn't know about it until I was basically writing my own will at 13 years old. Because before cannabis, when I first got diagnosed, a few months before, I had drowned in a Boy Scout lake. A lake at a Boy Scout camp. The lake water that I had swallowed, the bacteria from it kind of kicked my Crohn's disease into full flare mode, which led to the partial diagnosis at our local hospital, and we went to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota for the full diagnosis of Crohn's disease. The first thing they put me on was Azicol, which was basically the health equivalent of taking 2 pills of Tylenol every day, but it just wasn't working. At this point, I was tired, always in pain, always in the back room, and with my Crohn's disease came rheumatoid arthritis. Eventually, we went on to medications like Remicade, which gave me medically induced lupus. Methotrexate, 1 shot from it, gave me nosebleeds for 15 minutes straight. Prednisone. My uncle has ulcerative colitis. We were diagnosed around the same time, and we were both on prednisone at the same time, and we both got really puffy faces. That's one of the side effects. But my uncle, he was taking the same medicine, and his bones from his hips started to deteriorate. And he had one replaced, and he had to get another replaced. And my heel in my foot got deteriorated as well, and I had to wear a boot for a couple months. A little while after that, I'm sure you've seen the commercials, but I was put on Humira, which is another pharmaceutical. And the only thing that it really helped with, it helped more than the others, but it was way more dangerous. It helped me grow a little bit. That's mainly all it did. It didn't give me my energy back. I was still in the bathroom all the time, and I was having the pains, which were the worst. And the reason why we didn't realize I had Crohn's disease sooner was because my dad, he was a short person. He was like, oh, he's short like his dad, he'll grow eventually. But it eventually just got worse, where I was 11 and I was shorter than my 9-year-old sister. That's how bad it was. But the Humira, it helped with the growing a little bit, but it wasn't giving me everything I needed. One summer in 2013, I went to a camp called Camp Oasis, which is a camp for children with Crohn's disease. But everyone there really doesn't have an immune system, so if one kid catches something, the rest of them will. But I came home and my lymph nodes were very large. They were the size of golf balls, a little larger than that. We went to the doctor, we got multiple diagnoses of random things that weren't it. Eventually we had a lymphoma scare. And they wanted to take the lymph node from they were supposed to take it from here but they ended up taking it from here at last minute. And I can tell, you can probably wonder why my lips are smacking a lot, and I'll tell you why in a second. They were supposed to take out lymph nodes, but they had taken out salivary glands by mistake. Yeah. So that, the lack of saliva and combined with a digestive disorder isn't a good combination. So after all that, we were taken off the Humira, and I was faced with 3 options. One was Cimzia, another biologic, and if I had taken Remicade, Humira, or I was a teenage male, then I would have a 66% chance of developing lymphoma, which I had done on all 3 of those. So I immediately didn't want to do it. The next option was surgery, and they wanted to take my colon out, and basically I would have a bag on my side for the rest of my life. But the third one, which I'm glad I took it, was alternative medicines. and they can't say, go try cannabis. They basically just said, check out what's going on in Colorado. And that's what we did. I'm sure that there were other places that we could have went to try the medicine, but we were told that Colorado was probably our best option. So we went there, and I've been in remission ever since. But recently, I had to go back to Illinois, and I couldn't take my medicine with me. And that night, I had a little too much pizza. Yeah, you can see where this is going. I came back to Colorado, and my side was hurting like crazy. I could barely walk. It was so painful. So we went to our local hospital, and they had kicked us out because I was a cannabis user. They wouldn't treat me, they wouldn't give me medicine or anything. But if I had epilepsy, they would have taken me in. That made me mad. And they thought I had things like appendicitis, like all this crazy stuff, and then the closest hospital that was cannabis friendly was 2.5 hours away. So if I did have something and it went off on the ride there, then I would have been done for it. Not only is it a 2.5 hour drive, but there was traffic, which was not good. Eventually we got there, and we went into the hospital and everything. It was kind of a don't ask, we don't ask, you don't tell kind of thing. Like, we won't ask about the cannabis, don't talk about it. You know, it was a mutual thing. But they sent us home with antibiotics, and they told us to keep doing what we were doing. But I was taking off the antibiotics, I believe, a little too early, and I had the same flare again, which took me back into the hospital, and I had to have a PICC line in for about 2 weeks after I had returned home from the hospital, which I stayed in for a week. So I was basically getting TPN and antibiotics through my PICC line because they said that I didn't have fight the appetite. I'm a cannabis user and I'm a teenager. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a pretty good appetite. But 2 weeks of TPN and antibiotics, and I also had to pull my own weight as well. They were just like, just eat as much as you can, and we'll get that all settled. But at the same time, I had to drink these milkshakes, and they were horrible. But eventually, they decided that I need to eat only 250 calories a day of physical food and drink 6 of these shakes a day. And with me, everyone's Crohn's affects them differently. Like, sometimes if I don't eat enough or I eat too much, it can put me in a flare. Some people, it affects them differently. But 250 calories is not going to be enough to keep me out of a flare. So we tried to do it for as long as we could, but it really didn't work out. But we're still trying to balance it out and everything. Can you fill up a glass of water for me, please? My mouth is really dry, as you can tell, because of the lack of salivary glands. Thank you. Appreciate it. But like I said, I came here in a wheelchair because I was so weak, and I had already written my will. And I'm sure you guys have all seen the commercials of the anti-drug commercial where he has the egg in the skillet. This is your brain, this is drugs, this is your brain on drugs. Any questions? Well, I decided to do my own. I'm trying.
Hi, my name is Coleman.
Oh, it's not showing video.
Maybe your mom can help me.
I think I broke it.
No, probably.
There's a cable. Make sure the video cable is plugged in.
I think it's plugged in.
I think it is. Got it? I don't think it is.
My name is
It does the audio, but it just doesn't.
What, you're supposed to put it on the folder?
Yeah.
Yeah, we clicked on the folder.
Third display.
Any studies?
This is way more complicated than it needs to be.
Now, cannabis could fix this.
that means.
You guys try the function key to get it to the projector. It's usually like F8 or something.
That's one. Well, maybe you could.
It did get it like a video feed on that.
Oh, here it goes. Heather's is on there. You can do Heather's presentation again.
Okay, just need to save a video.
Sorry.
There it is.
Started over.
Volume.
Hi, my name is Coleman Turner. I'm 14 years old. I have Crohn's disease. This was my colon. This is cannabis. This is my colon with cannabis. Any questions?
And one more thing. It's just a little quote that I came up with when I started. Everyone is trying to make it legal in the United States and illegal in the United States. Everyone's trying to make it illegal or legal, but either way, I'm going to do it. I don't care if it's illegal or not, because I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
Yes.